Hey, what's up guys, Paulie here. Today we have another quick chat and it's going to be on Amnesia Rebirth. I literally just finished, today's Sunday, the 1st I think? Yeah, Sunday the 1st. I just finished recording the last three episodes of Amnesia Rebirth. And I wanted to talk about it while it's still fresh in my head, you know? And let's just do this so you can actually see my face. Okay. It's brilliant in my opinion. They did everything that Amnesia, the Dark Descent was, they improved on. The puzzles are, I wouldn't say they're difficult at all. It just all depends on how much attention you're paying to the surroundings. And if you're shit scared, you're not paying much attention to the surroundings. And if you're trying to tell a story or interact with, I guess, your audience, you also sometimes miss things. And I'm just terrible at puzzles. But I don't think they were difficult. I just think they were nice. But they also did tone down the go fetch this, put this here, go look for that, put that there. They took out most of those puzzles. And the new little puzzles with the powered triangles were really cool. I enjoyed those. Where it's just essentially it's on the other side of a room that has a monster in it, or it's in the room with a monster in it, or something like that, and you just need to grab it and bring it back. Like it wasn't tedious to do, and it wasn't difficult to figure out either. And it was just the puzzle gameplay. It could have been a bit heavier, a bit more challenging, but I don't think that's why people really play Amnesia. So I think for me they struck a really nice balance between it being difficult and it being fine. Essentially, it's just it was the puzzles were fine. Then onto the scare factor. I don't know if it's because I was on. Okay, let's start with Dark Descent. It's on my YouTube if you want to watch it. I did do another playthrough of it, and then A Machine for Pigs. Did do another playthrough of that, and now this. And in comparison with Machine for Pigs, this is hands down the sequel that Amnesia needed. As far as I understand, the original Amnesia team didn't actually make Machine for Pigs. I'm not sure, but I don't think they did. And then in comparison with Soma, this is also definitely an improvement on the Soma formula. I think they changed a lot of things for the good in Soma, but there were still a lot of things that also annoyed me. I never finished it because I lost about 8 recorded episodes, and I don't have a save that goes that far back, so I'd have to play about 8 or 9 hours just to catch up to where I was, which I'm definitely not going to do to catch up on Soma. So the things that they improved between the Dark Descent to Soma, and then from Soma to Rebirth, is really, really good. The story was fun. And I am at the end of the video going to go into the story and into spoilers for the end. But I would like to just talk about the game in general before that, because I don't want to spoil things, because this video might even go up today or tomorrow. So I'd like to not spoil the story for the people who still want to watch it. So I'll just give a spoiler there. So we'll get to that later. In any case, gameplay wise, feels good. I can throw things again. Items feel weighted. You can pick up your what was PewDiePie's little man called? I don't know. You can pick up Stefanos and carry them around if you want to. At the start of my playthrough, I had this adorable doll called Sarah, which I promptly lost and never saw Sarah again. Quite sad about that. I lost her literally at the end of the first episode and never saw her again. Picking objects up and searching for stuff and searching for going. You essentially, it's still a risk and gain type of game, where what you're risking in this sense is actually your own fear levels. You can go and look at what's in that dark ass room, and you can go and look for loot in that dark corridor where you see a faint flickering light. You can go and do all of that. You know that the main way is probably that way because there's like 4 torches and then a door, and you're like, okay, I should probably go that way, but I could go down these 2 passages and look for extra lantern fuel or extra matches. And then you are essentially weighing, am I brave enough? How fast is my heart beating? What is my BPM right now? Am I going to have a heart attack if I go down this corridor? Or do I just want to go to the door because we just did a scary section, and generally after a scary section there's a bit of a chill puzzle solving section, which I also enjoy the pacing of the game. The way they handle the pacing with that. So there's still the risk and reward and what you gain through trying to explore. And there's either a jump scare or some cool lore that you might miss if you don't explore, or you're just not going to get enough resources to survive. Which generally was, I don't think I explored that much, unless I didn't know that was the correct path. I tried to explore as much as I can. One of my friends let me know that there's an entire crack in the triple obelisk, that massive obelisk room by the teleporter. Apparently there's a crack in the wall that I completely missed. But I think I might have, in one of like the episode after that, might have explored it. I'm not actually sure. But the resources you have aren't that insanely important. You can quite easily get away with just walking through the dark. Your character's eyes essentially adjust, and then you just walk through the darkness quite easily and find your way. The only annoying part is when you get like overcome by fear and start turning into you start losing your mind. Let's just put it that way. And that's the only annoying part that I found with not having the resources to match it to like the torches or lantern fuel, which I ended the game with like probably 2 lanterns worth of lantern fuel and no lantern. So there's that. Then there's also the other part of the game, the story. Without going into spoilers, you play as Tassi. You have a husband called Salim, and the game starts you after a plane crash. You walk through the desert, you go into a cave, and that's when the story slowly starts unraveling itself, and when all this scary shit slowly starts happening as well. And then later on, you do find out that you are indeed pregnant. Later on in the story, you also find out that your daughter Alice died, and that the baby that you are currently carrying is also quite sick and will die soon after birth. Now, those are just very light spoilers. If you've watched the playthrough up to now, you'll know all of those things. So, sorry if you didn't know those things. It's not actually very much of a spoiler, and Amnesia isn't a spoiler game. You don't play it for the story. I found Amnesia: The Dark Descent and Machine for Pigs. I played for the gameplay. The gameplay was disappointing. Then I played for the story, and then the story was so, I wasn't very happy with that one. But either way, when you play Amnesia Rebirth, the story is I would give the story, like, for me, I would give the story about an 8 or so. And then after that, I would give the gameplay, the physical moment-to-moment gameplay, I would also give around an 8. And then the game in general, the graphics, the overhaul, the new engine, all of that looks incredible. The way that they designed some of the levels, the gruesome things they set up, some of the interactions. There's a stage in the game where you have to get chemicals. I think it's quite early, probably around episode 4 or 5-ish in my playthrough, where you have to get chemicals from a guy that's attached a hook and a cable to a grenade pin on his hip and the gate, so that if you open the gate, he'd blow up and kill you. And just it's things like that it's just not like, oh, here's a blatant plain puzzle, solve it, like they did in A Machine for Pigs. It's like, here is a world and lore that you interact with, and each puzzle is also telling, or not each puzzle, but most of the puzzle also telling you a story of sorts as you solve it, which I really, really enjoyed. Alright guys, that is going to do it for the let's talk about Amnesia without spoiling. Let's get into the story here. So anybody who doesn't want to know what happens in the end, please GTFO and watch the rest of my series and then come back, I guess, and watch the last few minutes here. I don't know how much longer this is going to be. Okay, bye. Now it's just us. So when you start as Tassi, you play as Tassi, you realize that Salim's dead, you get your lantern, and then you explore the world and you realize that you were given an amulet by someone, and you can travel through these portals into what I like calling the netherworld. The dark world is I think what they refer to it as in game, but I also like the upside down. And in this world, there's these gargantuan structures. There's a few notes that point out that it's the end of the world. Like, the world ended and that moment is frozen in time, and time moves differently there. Either you can age and the world doesn't change at all, or the world is changing constantly and you don't age at all. And as you're playing through there, you get quite a few notes that reference the change in time, and then eventually also why that place exists. It essentially exists as a factory to collect vitae, whatever the hell it's called, I can never remember. Life essence, okay? it exists as gigantic factories, and it's quite a few moments where you can look out at that world. Near the end, you spend quite a lot of time there. You can see these distant structures, gargantuan, mammoth structures of pipes and just vitae flowing and flowing and flowing and flowing towards this one tower, and that is where the queen, or the first mother, whatever the heck they call it in the game, that is where she is. And when you eventually do get to her, you get a decision to make. And I literally just finished recording my 3 episodes, so I still need to go check out. I think I'm just going to watch it on YouTube. I don't feel like going through the stress of trying to do it myself right now. But do let me know if you guys do actually want to see me do it, then I will. But anyway, there are quite a few vistas where you can see this beautiful, gigantic, neon dark world landscapes with just pipes that feed life essence to the queen. And when you do eventually make it to her, you have to make the decision of, do you leave your child with her, which means the child will survive, and then you'll be reborn as a harvester. So you will collect essence to keep feeding the queen and your daughter to keep them alive. Or the other option is to grab your daughter and run. Now, I did see 2 panels where you could put a life essence capsule into it. And then I'm assuming after that, you can use the injector that you still have to inject, and then so doing kill the queen. Probably you lose your daughter and your life. That's why I didn't go for that one. And it also seemed like more stress, and I think my heart can't take much more Amnesia right now. I don't know why. This game hit me hard in the scares. This game really did hit me hard in the scares. But I did really enjoy playing it, and the story is really cool when you think about it. It just plays around this mystical mother in the desert that has for generations and generations kept people of the desert safe by giving them water. These people then eventually lose their minds and become a slave to hunger, and the reason they eat people, the reason they have that hunger craving, is to eat the life essence of people. You become a harvester that then harvests some of the vitality from people, as you did do the torture as William in the first game. And while you're playing, you realize that slowly Tass is also turning into a harvester. And then that is the ending that I chose, is to stay a harvester and collect life essence for eternity for my daughter and the queen. Now, this queen is seen as this god, this deity that has helped the people in the desert for eons. But it all came at a price. They became ghouls eventually, and they became a slave to their hunger. I think it's episode 10, where you not bump into, but you run through this room absolutely filled with the ghouls, and you actually see the vastness and the amount of them that exist in that world. Then one thing I want to touch on is, how does the Machine for Pigs game actually tie into this? And there isn't much of a link. In Machine for Pigs, you get a few points where they reference the Brennenburg Castle and the Vitae or life essence or whatever it is. In that as well, it references the shadow, it references the orbs, of course. But the main story of that is just, you're a father that lost his mind and just literally doing puzzles on your way to the bottom of the machine that you created, and then you realize that you sacrificed your own kids for the greater good, I guess. Or you would have thought before you lost your mind as the greater good, and then after you return to it. So there isn't much of a actual link between those games, other than the link in subject matter, but not a direct link in story. This one, however, does have quite a few more references to William Weir. References to Weir, which is the guy that the guy that's pretty much in the tank, if I can put it that way, in Amnesia: The Dark Descent. And there's references to Alexander, to Brennenburg Castle, the shadow, the darkness, all of that. And I'm very curious to see where they actually go with the story now, because they've set it up now that the shadow is this great evil, and the mother is also an evil, but in a different kind of way. And these two do have interactions with each other in some of the notes you read. So I'm very curious to see what they actually do with another game if they do decide to make another game. I'm curious to see what they do with that information and what they actually end up deciding to do with the story now that we didn't choose to destroy the Dark World or the Netherrealm or the Upside Down or whatever you want to call it. And I don't know if you actually can. That's what I'm saying. I still need to find that out after recording this now. But I am really curious to see how they do tie up or tie all this into a third game, because the shadow was present in the world. His pustules were present in the world, and his pustules were, or pulsating flesh, whatever the fuck you call that, was like a direct counter, if I can put it that way, to the life essence that was feeding into the queen. Now, what I'm curious about is how are these two going to interact with each other in future games, because the first Amnesia game, the darkness and the harvesters from Alexander are like the main threats to you. We're ignoring Machine for Pigs never existed. And then in Amnesia Rebirth, it's kind of the polar opposite. You're seeing the other side of the coin. The big threat is this mother, this goddess, and her ghouls. Now, are we at some stage going to see I don't want to say crossover, but an interaction between the Shadow and his red pustules and the Mother Queen and her life essence? All things I'm curious about, and I just wanted to plant that seed and have a little bit of a roly shit 17 minutes. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here, guys. That was a bit more of a ramble than I planned, but thank you for participating in my ramble. I do greatly appreciate it, guys. Have an awesome one wherever you are in the world. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you enjoyed my content, check out my channel and hit subscribe. And then I'll see all of you in the next episode. Cheers.